Thanks for tuning into the 6-3 podcast. Happy election day.
Yeah.
Big time every 4 years. We're not going to talk about that on the 6-3. We aren't about that life. No. Maybe pregame we are, but not during.
Yeah.
But this week most teams have now played 8 games of their season already. So we were going to do a halfway point NFL awards. We're going to talk about what happened with Michigan State. And we're going to talk about the Lions and Colts and just revisit a very difficult weekend for most local fans.
Yes.
Yeah.
Eastern Michigan sports did not do well.
Yes.
No, I made the joke that this is probably on Twitter. I said this is probably the worst weekend I've had in a long time. Like, obviously, Michigan having their worst upset since Appalachian State, the Lions losing a must-win game to the Colts.
Not even, and it wasn't close.
Yeah,
No.
Yeah.
There was there was a little bit of time where it was close, and then
when they marched right down the field after halftime, I was like, oh, hey.
I was like, all right, we might have a chance here.
But I think it was a perfectly encompassing moment of the Lions where it was close and it was within grasp, but you never thought they could win.
Yep. Yeah. That was pretty much how I felt.
We'll get to him when we get to him, but their O-line was terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, jeez. Well, let's just start out here with some NFL awards, guys. Who is now looking like the NFL favorite for MVP award?
I mean, it's got to be Russell Wilson. It's probably not the most creative pick at this point, but he had 2 down weeks before this week. He started the season off incredible, record breaking, and then kind of just had some mundane cruise control seeming games. I think he was still going out there and playing his hardest, but he came back this week with an incredible performance, and I think he supplanted himself as number 1 for MVP. I think you still got Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen could still put some.
Patrick Mahomes just went off last week. He put 57
Patrick Mahomes, yeah.
Up.
Yep. You still got Lamar Jackson. If he just was 2019 Lamar Jackson for the last half of the season, he'd probably win it. But right now, my favorite's Russell.
Yeah, I think Wilson's probably definitely the favorite, but that's not to say I think I would say I think he's going to win it right now. I mean, if he just kind of even just has, if he continues to do what he's doing, he's going to win the MVP in my opinion. However, Mahomes is, in my opinion, probably in second, and it's not a distant second. I think he's definitely got a great shot.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I mean, Josh Allen, I guess, sort of would have a chance if he.
I think Aaron Rodgers fell losing that last week to the Vikings.
I would agree. I mean, there needs to be some team success taken into account there to an extent, unless you're just going crazy. I don't know. I think Tom Brady is going to be in the top 4 of that race by the end of it. I really do.
Which, again, is a huge surprise. 43 years old, sitting on the top.
His stats are not bad. They're excellent in my opinion. I mean, really, they're above where he was last year, which I kind of expected because he had a better roster. But really, I mean, everybody's been hurt on that team, and they're still going out there and figuring out ways to win, and he's still putting up some really good numbers. He's avoiding interceptions other than the first couple of weeks when he was throwing pick sixes left and right. So, yeah, I don't think he's going to win it, but he's going to be in the race at the end, which is kind of incredible. I'd go Wilson, Mahomes, either Rodgers or Allen. Probably Rodgers still, just because Allen had some bum weeks, and then I'd probably even go Brady right after that. So
that's pretty much my exact order. Russell Wilson, I think, and like you said, Mahomes is pretty much just going to wait for a Russell Wilson slip up, like a 2 week in a row drought or something where he really struggles, because I think Mahomes is going to keep putting up consistent, strong numbers.
With that team and how they play, there's no way.
There's not a whole lot of flaw in his game. He's not going to struggle. So I think he's literally waiting for a couple of bad weeks from Wilson. And I personally think if I had to make my final prediction, I think Mahomes will pass Wilson, just because I don't think Wilson's going to be able to maintain it. So my final pick would be Mahomes if I look and make my prediction for the end of the season. But if you look at just what we've seen halfway, then Russell Wilson's got to be the guy.
For sure.
I still think it's going to be tough because one of the benefits of Wilson too is he's got the toughest division football right now. It's going to change. Like 49ers, a ton of injury problems. I think the Cardinals will come back down to earth a little bit, but he's playing extremely tough competition, which is going to bring stats out of him. Like, because you can see totally Mahomes playing like the Chargers or the Broncos and them getting out to a big lead and him just kind of cruise controlling and them running the ball, like, and him throwing for maybe only 2 touchdowns. But Russell Wilson, when he plays divisional games, he's going to have to throw for 3 or 4 touchdowns each of those divisional games.
Sure.
So, yeah, I think it's going to be them too. I think I had that when we did the award predictions. I think I had Wilson MVP, Patrick Mahomes Offensive Player of the Year. And it looks like if things stay the way they are and no one's a surprise, it looks like it's going to be either that or vice versa by the end of the season. So let me, real quick before we move on, I want to just read you the top 10 Vegas odds for MVP right now. And I want you to say, like, tell me if you think anybody's a surprise or shouldn't be on the list.
Sure.
So Wilson is first overall, obviously. Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes are tied in second place. Then it's Tom Brady. Then Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson are actually tied. And then Ben Roethlisberger, Josh Allen, Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry.
I think that makes sense. I would put Rodgers a step below.
Yeah, me too.
But it does.
I put Tannehill out of the top 10.
Yeah, I wouldn't
this
even have
was
in there.
And I should say this is as of before last Sunday.
Yeah. So if we're gonna take last week into account, that does make sense if that wasn't into account for sure.
Mahomes and Rodgers are tied.
Yeah. I mean, Mahomes was crazy last week. Rodgers was not as good. I wouldn't be surprised if Rodgers gets himself right back into the race either, though.
Roethlisberger hanging out there in the top 6 is unbelievable to me. But I mean obviously play this year. He's been good, but preseason, I think we probably put him as a middle quarterback in the league.
Yeah, I mean, he was probably 16, 17.
He's
15.
been very effective this year.
Yeah, and he's been awesome. He's got a lot of weapons.
Which that'll be a perfect transition to the next one. I mean, Chase Claypool, he's obviously in the discussion for Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
And he's really helped that Pittsburgh offense, along with just the other guys they have, Deontay Johnson, James Conner, Juju. They're all getting the job done for him, and they have a great offensive line. Everybody knows that for Pittsburgh. But I don't know who is now the Offensive Rookie of the Year favorite for you guys.
I mean, obviously,
we talked about it. I think Burrow is my number one right now.
Yeah,
despite having an absolutely atrocious offensive line, which that could come back down to earth a little bit. But like Joe Burrow is just like. He is just a good NFL quarterback. Like, he is just playing like a good quarterback. He is, like, pretty high in a lot of statistical categories. He's doing great as far as, like, rookie quarterback seasons go in NFL history.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's hard because, Chase Claypool is also awesome.
He had that one crazy game, too. He had that one insane game.
Justin Jefferson is – playing really well for the Vikings. He's kind of trending downwards right now, but and then who knows with Tua and Justin Herbert finally getting starting time. But right now, I think Joe Burrow's like doing really good. If it wasn't for Joe Burrow, the Bengals would not have a single win. I don't think. Like, if they were still starting Andy Dalton, I think they'd be 0-8. But like Joe Burrow, I mean, he like, to use a kind of raunchy term, like, he makes it move, dude. Like, watching him play, like, you're like, man, there's something about him. Like, I know he said stay away from any rookie quarterback, and I still think that's a good idea for this season. But he's just doing really good these past couple weeks.
Yeah, I would say Burrow probably leads for me, just because I think any quarterback, you're going to lean quarterback for this award, and he's been the best rookie quarterback. And it helps that he's played every game. Tua obviously just started. I don't think Tua has a chance. Not saying I don't think he's could be good. I think he could be, but Justin Herbert, I think definitely needs to be considered. He's put up some big numbers in the games that he's been in there, and I think he's got a chance to continue to do that. I've been very impressed with Justin Herbert. I
ranked him at number 31 out of all 32.
I would say he's above that. Really impressed with him. Claypool is probably in the top 3. Other than that, I don't really know. There hasn't been a ton of crazy rookie breakouts. I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is getting a lot of PT, and he had some good early games, but hasn't been as good
But now
lately.
Le'Veon Bell's coming in. It's going to take away some of his opportunity.
Exactly. So, and he does
Right.
Bell does the same kind of thing that Helaire does, but probably better because he's not a rookie.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't really know how much they're going to continue to lean on him. They might though. I mean, who knows with Le'Veon Bell? who really knows?
Yeah.
So
the odds against Edwards-Helaire literally quadrupled in the past 2 weeks of this season.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it was kind of a question of how would they use Bell? Would they use Bell? You know, did they just get him to see what happened?
One of the crazy stats I saw was Le'Veon Bell took like 10 snaps to get a 20-plus yard rush with the Kansas City Chiefs. He didn't have a single one in the Jets.
That's insane.
He didn't have
offensive line is awful in New York.
Yeah, I think it was over 15 yards.
But
and the name of how Le'Veon plays is he's patient back, but he waits for the hole. But if the hole's never given to him, he's horrible.
Yeah.
Right. We talked about this last week. Like he's incredible, but he needs a good offensive line. Like every running back really does. You need a good offensive line. He really needs a good offensive line.
Yeah,
and when he has one,
his own hole. He's not that guy. He's not going to.
Same with Kerryon Johnson. Kerryon Johnson's literally. I mean, people say Kerryon reminds them of Le'Veon too, but if you put Kerryon on another offensive line team, like I honestly thought maybe Pittsburgh could split him and like James Conner and get that old Le'Veon Bell back because I think Kerryon has
for sure
Le'Veon potential because he's a patient back and he's very good at finding that hole if it's given to him. But
he's not quite the pass catcher that Le'Veon is and was. But for sure he's the reincarnation of him on the rushing end. I think like a lot of people have said that like anytime there was a couple years there where anytime a back like hesitated behind the line of scrimmage, they'd be like, "Oh, he's Le'Veon Bell." Like, no, but Kerryon Johnson, like, actually, he's got a lot of the make and mold of him.
Yeah. I mean, my rookie of the year right now, I think Joe Burrow. I mean, on the odds right now, he is actually second, but I think he's going to finish first. Justin Herbert, I think he's gonna level out a little bit, and his team is not, like they're blowing leads. Like they're not doing too great right now. Justin Jefferson's seen a fall off, but Chase Claypool's seen a rise. So I think Claypool will jump to 3. And then probably Jefferson will hang on to 4 unless, Tua has a really good second half of the season. Other than that, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, James Robinson really struggled lately too. So he's fallen down the list. Antonio Gibson's been going up the list in my opinion. But I think that's kind of what we're seeing. We're going to see those top 3 is definitely going to be, Burrow, Herbert, and then are we going to see like maybe Claypool or Jefferson at 3?
Well, those are the guys that are just going to get more playing time. They're not splitting carries. They're not like Jefferson's a receiver, so he's relying on Kirk Cousins. So, I mean, not something great to rely on right now.
Yeah.
I just think, Claypool's clearly established himself as a weapon for the Steelers that they use. For a while there, even Laviska Shenault was I would have thrown him in there.
Not as good of a team, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's just on a really, really bad team, so I just don't think that's ever going to happen. So, I think we got to lean quarterback on that award for sure, unless, Claypool has another crazy, 200-plus 4-touchdown game. If he throws that thing out there again, I mean, he's breaking records at that point. So,
yeah, no surprises in the NFL Rookie of the Year for defense. Chase Young is hanging out number 1. I think a lot of people, even before this draft happened, were like, Chase Young, he's going to probably be the Rookie of the Year no matter where he goes. And he's played very well with the football team. But like I said, I made the pick in the preseason. My preseason and defensive rookie of the year was actually Patrick Queen, who is sitting number 2 right now. And
he's been incredibly impressive.
Antoine Winfield's son, Antoine Winfield Jr., has also done very well for the Bucs. And even though the Bucs defense has been sloppy, he's kind of seems like he's actually been one of the few mainstays with consistency there. So Isaiah Simmons, he's hanging out here in the top 5 on the favorites for defense, but he's been terrible. They do not know how to use him.
They have to give him a solidified role.
Yeah.
and then let it grow from there. They're just doing all kinds of crazy crap with him, and they're not doing. I mean, it's not working. It's not
Well,
working.
that's what I said even in the mock drafts. I'm like, I don't want the Lions to touch Isaiah Simmons. His kind doesn't really work unless you are going to allow. Swiss Army knives don't work in the NFL.
Not unless you're going to allow. If you're just going to say, okay, you are our nickelback, or you are our weak side linebacker. You're just going to say that, and then let him do what he does from that position. Fine, but like you can't move it. I mean, that's not. No, it doesn't work in the NFL because every athlete is equal or better than you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like when Isaiah Simmons, like this season, when he's done something awesome, like when he had that interception against the Seahawks, like it's awesome. It's so cool. Like he's so good.
No, right into his hands, but still.
Yeah.
I know, but like it's just so cool that like you can see glimpses of him being like, this guy is extremely talented. He knows what he's doing a lot of the time. He just needs, if he gets the opportunity, he's awesome. But like that's what we talked about before the season started and after the draft. Like, will he get the opportunity? Will they use him right? Because it was the same thing with like a Jabril Peppers or like the Michigan Viper position they use. Like it's just a Swiss Army knife. It is someone who's on a blitz this one, on coverage on this one, like on man coverage, zone coverage, this, that. Like it doesn't translate to the NFL. And Jabril Peppers has been a good safety at NFL level, but that him doing a little bit of everything just was never going to happen in the NFL, and it's the same for Simmons.
Well, the problem is if you're going to be a guy who does a little bit of everything. So like late in like Charles Woodson's career, he started to do a little bit. He was doing a little bit of everything. He was playing nickel. He came on a lot of blitzes. He was up on the line of scrimmage. He would also play outside corner. He would, play deep safety. He could do a lot of those things because he was very, very, very good covering. He was an excellent cover corner from the beginning. One of the best in the league, right? And then he was very good at these other things, right? He was a crazy good athlete. He could get to the quarterback, but he was excellent at that one thing. So that he carved out a role for himself early in his career doing that one thing, and then it expanded from there. The problem is Isaiah Simmons is just pretty good at a bunch of different things, and you really can't be that way in the NFL. Like you said, it's the same thing with Peppers. He's a good tackler. He's extremely fast for a linebacker, but he's undersized for a linebacker, so you really can't put him at linebacker. He's really not extremely fast for a safety. He's average or probably upper, but average. He's not going to play corner because he's not good enough cover-wise. So he's in between. And if you're an in-between guy in the NFL, you're not really going to be, unless they find a perfect spot for him, where it fits a defense perfectly, and let him stay there. I don't think he's going to find, the success that
Peppers is improving though. I mean, he led both the Bucks and Giants yesterday in tackles at 10. So he's improving. I've seen it.
Peppers is a great safety right now.
It took him some time to figure it out.
He was terrible with the Browns.
Exactly. Right away, he was not good. They didn't know what to do with him, and they didn't let him. I mean, they were having him play, deep safety, 25 yards off the ball. That's not what he does. Mm-hmm. Like he needs to be a strong safety in the box, covering tight ends and slots.
I want to talk about this last guy that I think has also performed very well as a defensive rookie, and that's Jalen Johnson. And I don't know if you remember, Ben, in our chat with Zach, because obviously the Bears grabbed him, and I pulled it up on our chat here.
It was a while ago. Jeez.
So we go back to 424 at 8:38 p.m. I texted in that group, and I said, I really like Jalen Johnson a lot. I'm super jealous. Good pick there for the Bears. Mm-hmm. And that's because, NFL draft prospects, the completion percentage allowed on throws 10-plus yards downfield. Jalen Johnson had a 13% completion percentage given up. Yeah, he was so underrated, and he was the guy that I wanted the Lions to target in the second round if they didn't get Jeff Okudah. If they traded down and didn't get Jeff Okudah, I wanted Jalen Johnson there in a second.
Yeah. Well, and he's already got 10 pass breakups, which is a lot for a rookie, and getting limited playing time, like 25 tackles too. Like he's been awesome. Like that was a great pickup, and I think just having somewhat of a limited role, like they're using him. I mean, they're not just throwing him in as their number one corner. They're not just putting him up against the hardest guys, but he is the role they are giving him. He is taking full advantage of, and it's impressive.
The only issue is the only way a guy like Johnson would win Defensive Rookie of the Year is if he had like 8 interceptions.
Yeah, I know.
Brought,
Corners have
brought
Oh,
a
for sure.
back for touchdowns or something. It's just you don't get the same kind of action at corner. And you know what? If you're a corner and you're not getting action, that's usually a good sign because that means you've covered the guy.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, it's just you're probably not going to win the award, but yeah, I would agree. He's definitely. He's probably exceeded expectations. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Joel, you had high expectations for him, but he's been very good. So
Yeah.
Well, and like in talking about rookie cornerbacks, like I know he's not going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year, but I have been pleasantly I've been pretty happy with Jeff Okudah so far. Like
other than the first 2 weeks, yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But like these past few weeks, like he seems to be kind of figuring out what he can do against NFL level talent at this point in his career, and he's at least not a liability anymore, which is like, hey, I mean, I know he's like the top 5 pick, but like, start with don't be a liability and work your way up from there. But yeah. I think Defensive Rookie of the Year is definitely Chase Young's award to lose.
I would agree.
Okay, so for Coach of the Year, who you guys got now?
Who?
I mean,
I think.
Mike,
I think
Mike Tomlin, dude.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's hard to go against who has the best record.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even if they have a great team, like usually who has the best record or at least is within 2 games at the end of the year wins the award. Like, I mean, he's looking awesome, but I guess if I'm going to go with someone different because I feel like it because I don't like Mike Tomlin very much. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think Sean McDermott, like just being 6-2, getting the New England Patriots monkey off the Bills' back is awesome. And then Bruce Arians, if the Bucs can continue to be this great and if they come out on top with like a 11-12 win season in that division, like, I think those 3 guys are looking like the front runners for me.
I was gonna say Tomlin, Arians, McDermott. I think Mike Vrabel will probably get some love.
Yeah.
So you guys are missing my preseason Coach of the Year pick, who is actually second on Coach of the Year odds, and that's Brian Flores for the Dolphins.
Brian Flores. Okay, so the Dolphins have been a lot better than I thought they were going to be. I don't know. I'd like to see how they finish.
Like, yeah, I mean that's obviously going to be key. But
that's hard for me to put him there right now with breaking that. Now they've got Tua. They've got some different things going on. I don't know if I'd put him there now, but I mean. Yeah, I mean, that coaching job has been impressive because they were ready to give up on him after week 1 last year. And it's been pretty good.
My Coach of the Year has actually changed since the preseason and then the quarter of the way through. My pick was Sean McDermott, and now it is Mike Tomlin. But, again, I started out with Flores, went to McDermott, now Tomlin. So who knows what it's going to be at 3/4 of the season through. It's just kind of changing.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Flores has definitely done the most with the least. Honestly, every coach in the NFL. Like, I wish you could say that about some other coaches. Like, I was excited for some other coaches to have that kind of moniker, but he's definitely doing the most with the least. But yeah, and then I also think you just got to look at Andy Reid too. Like, I don't know how often a defending Super Bowl champion winning coach wins the Coach of the Year award because everyone assumes the team's going to be really good anyway. But, I mean, Kansas City is just they had one misstep, but they're just pouring it on. And they are just looking incredible. Adding Le'Veon Bell was awesome, but, they are amazing right now. They have a plus 100 point differential, which is ridiculous. But, yeah, if they just keep this up, they don't really have that hard of a remaining schedule. They have they play the Bucs and they play the Saints, which are really their only 2 games they should lose. And if they just win one of those and they end up going 14-2 or 13-3, I mean, it's going to be hard for Andy. Andy Reid's going to get some votes, even though he has probably the most stacked roster in the NFL.
Sure.
But yeah, when you're that good of a team, where you only have 2 or 3 losses, he's going to get some love.
What do you guys think, real quick, this has some stuff to do with coaching, but now that Brady or Belichick like debate, who was it really, making it work there in New England is kind of coming into Brady's favor now. I still think Belichick is obviously an excellent coach,
I
but
still think, he's the greatest of all time. He did, but it proves that Brady was the quarterback, like is still
yeah,
an elite quarterback.
yeah. Like I think people were putting so much at the end of that on Belichick when it's like,
Right.
guys, like I'm telling you, Brady is doing this, like all of this, like
Yeah.
large majority of this, and without him, they don't win these games that they're pulling out of their rear ends. Like,
I think it's very
we
obvious.
thought that the Patriots were tanking. We thought the Patriots were tanking at the beginning of the year. We're like, well, they aren't going to. This is before they got Cam Newton even and stuff too. But we're like, they've got everyone's opting out. They've got no talent on this roster. We had them pretty low in our rankings.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people were just like, they're going to wait for that Trevor Lawrence guy to come around or something.
It still might be. I mean, they're not playing very well right now. So
yeah.
Well, and I think they still have a pretty favorable remaining season. They had a tough beginning of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Like, with as good as the Bills are now, they played the Seahawks, they played the Chiefs. They had the whole coronavirus thing. They really only have, the Cardinals and the Ravens left and the Bills one more time that really pose big challenges to them. So they could have
right.
Yeah. So it's not going to look good, and it's going to just be, way down from where New England thought they would be. And I think, I hope it's just because he had a year off, but Cam Newton just doesn't look good. Like
he looked like the comeback player of the year for the first 2 weeks.
Right. Yeah. We talked to I thought he was going to be. I think I might have picked him, but
yep.
He just had and he put it on himself, but you can only put it on your because he came on his press conference, said it was his fault. Well, no shit, it's his fault. He fumbled the ball and lost the game.
Exactly. He threw a bunch of interceptions. Come on.
He had 3 interceptions and no touchdowns against the 49ers.
Exactly.
He's just not playing good. He had 2 interceptions and no touchdowns against the Broncos, for heaven's sake. I still think there's a good Cam Newton somewhere deep down there. It's not an MVP level Cam Newton. But I hope it's just that he took a year off and is relearning a new system and
a complicated system. There's a reason there's success for
sure
behind it. Bill Belichick has a complicated system.
Yeah.
Right, and that's why it took Brady only a couple games to get really settled in the Buck system, because I'm sure it's less complicated than what he had in New England.
But Bruce Arians just throw it up.
Yeah,
so.
I think New England is the only team where I think a Wonderlic score test matters. If you're stupid, if you're a dummy, you're not going to be.
It's not going to work out there, man.
Yeah, they should get Josh Rosen.
Yeah,
come on, smart guy.
Yeah, there you go.
But
Blaine Gabbert had the highest Wonderlic ever.
Yeah. I just think Cam Newton's got to step it up, though.
2 more awards, because we kind of talked about our Offensive Player of the Year award, so we'll go to Defensive Player of the Year award, and we'll do comeback to finish it. But who do you think is winning the Defensive Player of the Year right now?
I really would I think Aaron Donald's leading it right now, but the top 3. So Aaron Donald, TJ Watt, and Myles Garrett are for as good as it goes, pretty much tied at top. They're within 100 betting points of each other.
Yep.
I really think Myles Garrett, if he doesn't smack anyone in their head with their own helmet, I think he could win it.
Yeah.
The Browns are going to be in games going the rest of the season, and they're going to need their defense to step up, and he's going to have opportunity to pad his stats a bit more. And I think he's just – the thing with Aaron Donald, and we talked about it, even though he's having a great season, he takes so much attention from other teams. So, once he starts to see a couple teams and some better teams a couple times, in his division and stuff, they're going to start double and triple teaming him, and his stats are going to reflect that. But Myles Garrett –
These writers know that. That's where the fact that he's still on pace until last week, he was still on pace to break Michael Strahan's record. And he's a defensive tackle. He's an interior lineman.
Yeah.
And people know that he gets double teamed.
What helps Donald, too, what's going to help Donald, too, and it doesn't matter as much for Defensive Player of the Year, but the Rams have been better than we thought they'd be.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people actually not better than Isaiah thought, because you thought they'd be.
Yeah, Isaiah's smart. Yeah,
you were smart and thought they'd be a little better, but they're better than most had them, staked to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that helps him. But yeah, I'm telling you, Miles Garrett is a scary dude. That dude
Oh
is
my gosh.
like watching that. There were a few times. I don't remember what game I was watching. It was a couple weeks ago, and it's like, how do you block that guy? And I could say that about any of these guys, even T.J. Watt. Like I could say that about him, but like that guy is terrifying. Like he could kill you on a football field and not even try. Like that. I would not be surprised. Like I said, my pick would be Miles Garrett right now.
Yeah.
Like I think he's going to put up some crazy numbers here in the end. Unless Donald sets the record, which I don't think he will. But unless he sets the record.
Yeah. Well, they're both tied. They're both tied at 9 sacks right now.
Yep.
And I think one stat that I like from Miles Garrett too. I'll have to look it up for Aaron Donald to see what he's at. But he's at 3. But Miles Garrett has 4 forced fumbles.
Yeah.
Like, that's a great stat to have, like, going into that, because if you're within a sack or 2 of each other, like going into the like voting phase of this award and after the regular season ends, if you've got like a couple more forced fumbles, like that's like the next stat people look at. TFLs and forced fumbles.
I think that's what I was watching. One of the games I was watching, he had like back-to-back like strip sacks.
Yeah.
And pummeled the quarterback both times, and I'm just like, this guy is scary, man. Like, I mean, I don't think I forgot, but like just everything that happened last year with him, the craziness with Mason Rudolph. Like, I think you kind of like, I don't think I quite like remembered how terrifying that guy was. Yeah. And then I was watching that game, I'm like, holy crap! Like this dude's good. This dude's unblocked. Freak.
I so wanted Duck Hodges to play in that game when they were getting blown out by Pittsburgh. Like, I so wanted him to be in against Miles Garrett just for the memes.
Yes.
But and Cleveland has some like games left that are against pretty bad offensive lines, or at least bad teams too. Like they play both New York teams still. Jacksonville doesn't have a good offensive line. But they do play some really good ones. They have like Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, who have incredible offensive lines. But there's some games in there where he could have 2-3 sacks in those games and like really pad his stats and just look really good going into the end of the season.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Just don't bonk anyone on the head.
Yeah, just don't go crazy.
Last pick here. Who do you guys have for comeback player of the year?
See, this one's hard because like early in the year, I was like, man, Cam, like he keeps doing what he's doing. He's definitely it. Like he was dominating. I think my preseason pick was Stafford.
Mm-hmm. Stafford's actually 4th right now in overall.
I would not put him out of that race at all.
Yeah, I am gonna go with Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, you'd have
to. And it's weird because he didn't like have a bad season. He was just out, but like. Yeah. He's just doing it. He's playing great. He's been.
Yeah, they're undefeated. Better. They're the last undefeated team left. That says a lot. It speaks volumes.
Yeah, and like
play as well.
Yep.
Right, and a lot of it, like a big chunk of it, is their defense. That's for sure. But he's playing great. Like he is. Yeah, he's looking really good. He's looking like he didn't lose a step at all. I'd like him to like. Yeah, get a little more stats. Like I know he's doing really good.
Does Antonio Brown make a jump though? A last-second push in the final 8 weeks.
He would have to go nuts.
He'd have to get 20 touchdowns, man.
He would have to go nuts. But I really wouldn't put past him. Like he could literally score a touchdown like every game here, going through it, and then it'd be like, you might have to consider him. Like,
I think the better option is how much does Gronkowski have to do to jump over it? Because he's at least got the fan. Gronkowski has the fanfare behind his name. Like even if he could be one of those ones where he doesn't actually have a better season than Ben Roethlisberger, but like. Just because it's Gronk and everyone knows who he is, like
I think
just vote for him. But I think it's going to be between those two.
I think Gronk is. I would put it right now. Roethlisberger. Like my top 3 would probably Roethlisberger, Gronk, and Stafford. That's
okay. Cam Newton's in that top 4. J.J. Watt's rounding out the top.
I was going to say J.J. Watt.
So here's my J.J. Watt's probably up there too, but like I'm not putting Cam Newton up there now because of how bad he's been lately. Like his trend is so low right now.
Yeah.
Like obviously if he comes back and starts playing like he did at the beginning of the year, yeah, I mean he was my pick after 2 or 3 games. Like he was my pick for the award. So I mean he's got a chance to still win it. So he's not out of the race, but he's played so bad lately, and obviously, COVID and all that's gone, mixing things up. But I'm just not picking Cam for that. Right now, I don't think he's in my top 5 even. But he's definitely there as a chance because of how he played at the beginning of the year. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna finish this up here with a couple stats because I only have a couple this week. But the most 20-plus yard catches this year, Julio Jones has 12. Calvin Ridley has 11. So right there in the top 2 are Atlanta. And then Allen Robinson is tied with Calvin with also 11. But that's so wild that just the top 2 are 2 Falcons receivers.
And they're really bad for that team too. So.
Kiko Alonso has now been traded 4 times since 2015.
Okay.
That's fun if you're trying to move around. The Chargers are the first team in the NFL history to blow 4 leads of 16-plus points in 4 consecutive games.
Jeez.
That sounds like a Lions stat.
Lions thing, yeah.
Yep. Avery Williamson woke up in the morning playing for a winless team and went to sleep as a member of an undefeated team.
Yep.
Can't beat that.
Yep.
Let's see here. What else do I got? Nick Foles has thrown an interception in 6 straight games, which is the longest active streak. It also ties Jay Cutler for the longest streak by a Bears QB in the last 30 years.
Wow.
Bears fans still want him, though. They could beat the other guy.
I mean, exactly. You can't get – it's better than what they had. So, sort of.
Good news for the Jets, I guess. I found a good stat for the Jets, if it was possible. Any semblance of goodness will probably make people happier. But the Jets have not allowed a touchdown over their last 6 quarters of football, which tied for the longest streak in the NFL this season.
Hey.
So that was during the second quarter last week.
Yeah.
But still, that was the longest of any team in the NFL this season.
That they were still losing football games.
I know, isn't that weird? But they didn't give up any.
That's an indictment on that
How
offense.
bad they are to start. Well, they were the only team that couldn't score first either for a while.
Yeah, good point. Yep.
The Lions have the 4th most 3-and-outs in the NFL. So that could be obviously reason that there's still some struggle. And there are 5 quarterbacks all time with 50,000 plus pass yards, 1,000 plus rushing yards, and 10 plus rushing touchdowns. That is Matt Ryan, Brett Favre, John Elway, Tom Brady, and Ben Roethlisberger.
All right.
Didn't Brady, I think was it last year where he just barely cracked 1,000 or whatever?
Yeah. No, he just, after all those years.
After all those years, he had just cracked 1,000. Like I'm pretty sure if you look at his stats, he's had multiple years where he's been negative rushing yards. Which, I mean, sacks, but still.
Yeah. Okay, I got an interesting stat.
All right, deal.
Okay, so if you took the negative point differential of the New York Jets.
Yep.
And then you put that point differential on any other division in football. And you took away the already negative point differentials they have.
Mm-hmm.
So if you just took the positive point differentials for each division and added the Jets to it, each division would have a negative point differential. This includes the NFC West, who have point differentials of plus 41, plus 57, plus 41, and plus 35, which equals, I think, about 140, and the Jets have negative 144.
Holy cow.
This includes, if you just did it with the Kansas City Chiefs, who have plus 101, you're still negative 43 points. If you did it with Pittsburgh and the Ravens, who both have plus 71 and plus 69, you're still negative by 14 points. Or sorry, by 4 points. But yeah.
Golly.
If you added them to any division, it's an automatic negative point differential for the entire division.
That's so bad. That's horrendous.
Yes. The only team that comes close to them in negative point differential is the Dallas Cowboys at negative 81. And they'd still need to have as many negative points as the New England Patriots, the Cleveland Browns, and the Cincinnati Bengals to be less than the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about this probably towards the end of the year, depending on how it shakes out. But they are historically
bad.
Regardless of their record, we'll see what it ends up being. Obviously, 0-16 Lions are there too, but like historically terrible football team. If you just watch them for 10 minutes, you will understand how terrible that football team is.
They are as historically bad as the Detroit Red Wings were this past season.
Yes.
And they were like
You can compare
record-breaking.
apples with oranges. That's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean,
I'm just it's just ridiculous.
Yeah. So going to our last topic here for NFL, Lions are facing the Vikings after losing a must-win game pretty badly to the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah.
Now, and the Vikings are coming off a hot win against a pretty good Packers team. Are the Vikings going to get back to the team that we thought they might be early on in the year? Like, what do we expect from this game?
If they are going to, it's going to be against the Lions. But I still think the Lions are just a better team, just a little bit. I think they're a better team in my mind still this season. So I don't see any reason they should lose. If they do, though, it's going to be like last week where the Vikings can get pressure with maybe rushing 3 or 4 people, and Matt Stafford doesn't have any time. Like, that was the story of Sunday. If he would have had a second more each down, they would have won that game in my mind. Yeah. But if the Vikings, that is one thing they still have is a good pass rush.
No, Danielle Hunter's out. Danielle Hunter's out now.
Yeah, true. I was going to say.
Have Everson Griffin from him. So they don't have to
say. So they don't anymore.
True.
Never mind.
They're literally riding right now with Shamar Stephen, Ayafede Odenegbo, Jaleel Johnson, and Jalen Holmes.
Yeah, right. I forgot. Yeah, I forgot. Yep. So, yes, if the Lions can just give Matthew Stafford a little bit of time, they'll be fine. Because I don't think the Vikings have the coverage necessary to deal with a Matthew Stafford with time. They got some good guys in coverage. They have.
Harrison Smith, Anthony Harris are really good safeties, but like they're really young at corners. So like the rookie Cam Dantzler is starting, and they also have Holton Hill and Jeff Gladney, who's another rookie, but just really young at corner. So that doesn't bode well. Then their third safety is actually former Michigan Wolverine Josh Metellus.
Yep.
Hey.
Yep. So former Lions too. Riley Reif is on the offensive line for them, and then they also have Amir Abdullah as the return guy.
Yep.
So we'll see a little bit of former Lion work, but other than that, I worry a little bit about coverage with Justin Jefferson, who's been good this year. Adam Thielen's been good. B.C. Johnson actually beat us up pretty good last year, even though he's subpar. And then Tajay Sharp is their fourth guy. And then they got the tight ends, Kyle Rudolph, Irv Smith, and then the Central Michigan product, Tyler Conklin. But to me, they've got some firepower in the air. Dalvin Cook actually went off last week.
Crazy.
And
oh my gosh.
But if there's one thing the Lions have actually improved on since their bye week, it's stopping the run. They've done much better. Like between James Robinson and Todd Gurley, and then last week they shut down Jonathan Taylor. They had some struggles with Jordan Wilkins, and they couldn't stop Naheem Hines in the pass game. But other than that, they stuffed Jonathan Taylor really well, James Robinson and Todd Gurley, those are pretty good guys.
Yeah, it's still just go ahead. No, go.
Okay, so what concerns me is how they defended Hines last week. The Vikings are going to try to find a way to use Dalvin Cook that way. He's a very good receiver out of the backfield. Obviously, if I'm the Lions, I'm looking at it and going, okay, if they do that, that would be what I would do. So, you got to be prepared for that. So I'm assuming they will be, but at the same time, Dalvin Cook is dynamic. I mean, that guy is pretty much as good as it gets, especially with McCaffrey and Saquon being hurt this year. I mean, he's as dynamic as it comes right now in the NFL.
It's going to be Alexander Madison is going to be used like Jordan Wilkins.
Yeah,
and Dalvin like Naheem Hines, but in larger doses. Like it's going to be rough. They have to find a way to stop that early and often.
Exactly. So, if they can handle that, I'm not as concerned. Yeah, the receivers are tough. Thielen's always good. Justin Jefferson has been great this year. He's a threat, definitely deep. But, it would be nice to see the Lions be able to get a little bit of pressure on Kirk Cousins, maybe force him into a couple bad throws, maybe a couple turnovers, and see what happens from there. If they can steal a few possessions, hopefully bottle up Cook to an extent, no big plays, limit big plays. I feel pretty good Lions offense versus Vikings defense right now.
Yeah. So I think the other concern is, our best lineman is now on IR.
Right.
Like Trey Flowers just went on IR today.
Today,
And now, that's perfect timing for Everson Griffin to play his first game against his former team. But again, Everson Griffin's also not the same guy he was. He's 33 years old.
No, but if you can just pull it out for one game here and see what happens.
He's going to have the adrenaline going against his former team, that's for sure. But, Danny Shelton was the number one defensive player for the Lions last week, according to Pro Football Focus. He did very well. And John Pennicini has actually really stepped up this year in the run game.
Yep.
So as long as they can keep that going, Romeo Okwara has been a surprise once again, getting some sacks, leading the Lions in sacks.
Yeah. If you would have been in my household with my parents and siblings when Pennicini's name showed often and trying to pronounce it, and there was one time where he was standing like in front of in depth another player, and his shoulder pad covered the last 3 letters of his name, and that was the first time I saw his name, and I was like, what like, but yeah, and I think like it's just the thing with the Lions and their like faults, and this isn't a new development, but it was one that we hope would be improved this year, is just the trenches, like stopping the pass rush and having their own pass rush. Romeo Okwara, 5 sacks from him is really awesome to see this year. But they just, like, if they're going to – like, the thing you do with Kirk Cousins, and you do this with any pocket, like, true pocket passer, but the thing you do with Kirk Cousins is you get pressure on him. Like, he is an Eli Manning type of guy where if he feels pressure, he'll just go down. You saw that with Phillip Rivers even this past week in the first half. When they were getting a decent rush on him, Phillip Rivers just goes down. Like, he doesn't try to make a throw. He doesn't try to get out of it at this point in his career. He just falls down. So
that's why his interception numbers are so good this year too. He doesn't make veteran quarterbacks are going to be less inclined to make dumb mistakes. But
so you got to get some pressure on Kirk Cousins for him to either, I don't know, if he's in a mood to throw it up, you might get an interception or 2, or he might just be in a mood where you get 10-yard sacks. And that's their key. That's got to be a key to victory. It's either getting some sacks or getting some turnovers.
That O-line was bad last week, though. I don't know what.
Oh, my gosh.
Did they all just not get their sleep the previous night? I don't, because they've had definitely weeks where they played well, but they couldn't get the run game going at all.
No.
And they weren't blocking Stafford that great either. It was just super frustrating all the way around. Granted, Colts again are the top defense in football.
Yeah, but you just can't give up that much pressure when they're rushing 3 or 4 guys. Like, I understand if that happens when they're sending an extra guy or a delayed one, or like even cross goes with their like defensive tackles and stuff. Yeah. But just like they were just sending 4 straight on. There was one, I forget who it was. It was their left tackle, whoever was playing that down. He just had like the simplest spin move ever put on him, and he just like almost fell over. Like, he didn't even get a hand on the guy. Like, it was just, you saw the spin move coming from a yard away, and he just didn't even get a hand on him. And it was just a straight bull rush. And I was just like, dude, how do you, like, as an NFL lineman, how do you just let that guy go straight at your quarterback? Like, you got to at least push him off course a little bit. Yeah. But it was just, it was really rough.
The disturbing part if you're a Lions fan is okay, so we performed pretty well against the lesser teams to that point.
Mm-hmm.
We took care of business for the most part, beat the teams you were supposed to beat. But I picked them to win last week. I'm pretty sure I picked the Lions to win last week just because I thought that they had kind of turned a corner and gotten to the point where they would be riding momentum. And I didn't think the Colts aren't that great of a team. I mean, they're a good team. They're solid, but I thought the Lions had gotten themselves to where they're good and solid. And last week now is more of a step back where it's like, okay, the Lions are not there yet. They're not at that point. And I shouldn't be that surprised because that's kind of what they've shown us all year. But they were pretty much manhandled by that Colts defense up front, at least.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't be that overwhelmed, right? I mean, the NFL, like you don't really need to always establish a running game in the NFL anymore. You don't need to, but you have to be able to handle things up front to a point where that doesn't lose you the football game. Like, that can't be the reason that you just lose. Like, if you lose because you turn the ball over, fine. You lose because because it was a shootout back and forth, and then you just, you didn't have the ball last. all right, you lose because your defense got torched a certain way, fine. But if you're losing physically up front and just getting absolutely whipped like that, as they did, on the offensive line, that's disturbing because, like I said, yeah, the Colts are the number one defense, so part of it was a little bit to be expected. But, you needed to see the Lions step up to that next level, step up to the plate this time and say, hey, okay, we're going to play with the big boys now, and we're going to make this a 4-quarter game, and we're going to be right there at the end because we're not going to get whipped up front. We're not going to get absolutely annihilated to the point where we don't have a chance up front. And unfortunately, they kind of proved all the naysayers right last week, and it wasn't that competitive. It definitely wasn't a 4-quarter game, and it was to the point where they were physically beat up front, to the point where that lost them the game. Because, I agree with Isaiah. If they have any time to throw, they're going to be fine.
Yeah.
If they have time to throw, they're going to be fine. If they're able to run the ball, not necessarily with consistency, not necessarily dominating run game, but if they're able to run the ball a little bit to try to set up some of the throws, they probably are right there in that game and have a chance to win. But because they weren't able to, they took a big L, and now I don't know what to think. Now, now against Minnesota, yeah, I do think they should win, but now it brings things into question because if they don't show up against Minnesota, then we're going to probably be starting to talk about Patricia's head on a pole again.
Oh yeah.
I still might be there already, but we're going to probably be talking about that again.
Yeah, and I think and that's the thing. You don't have to be running for 10 yards a carry. That's not. And I don't think that's realistic with the Lions. But you just have to That was the reason. You saw so many times, especially in the second half, that the Colts were rushing for 3 or 4 guys because they didn't need to. Everyone else was in coverage. They had 7 to 8 guys in coverage almost every play. That was a passing play because they knew they could afford it. They could afford one of the rushers to get, and it got to be a game where the Lions were catching up, so you have to take that into account of they're going to be.
Yeah, that's some.
The Lions abandoned the run though for several drives.
They did for sure, and that's what I'm saying. They did abandon the run a lot. They were, especially second half, they were passing a ton. But the Colts were able to take the foot off the gas when it came to sending blitzes and blitzing their linebackers or even blitzing a safety because they just dropped those guys back into coverage and let their front four go to work. And they didn't have to get away from that game plan because it worked so well because the offensive line for the Lions just sat down and took it. And I feel I just continually as a Lions fan for the past however many years, I just feel bad for Matt Stafford.
Yep.
I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry you just get this guy if you get untouched guys when they're rushing 3 people and are not untouched when they're rushing 3, but you know what I mean? He's just he's got to think, oh, there's 3 guys rushing. I got time to make this throw. And then all of a sudden they're in his face. All 3 of them at times. There's times where all three out of the 4 rushers that they sent were in on the sack. And that's ridiculous. If one guy gets beat on his block, that's fine. It's not fine, but that's excusable. Get him on the next one. But when they would rush 4, 3 guys would get there. And it's you can't. No quarterback from Tom Brady to Russell Wilson to Patrick Mahomes can be successful under those circumstances.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, real quick, guys. What are your predictions, final scores for this game?
I think the Lions win 27-20.
I am going to say 23, Lions 23 to Minnesota 15. Not 15, sorry, 17.
I'm saying Vikings 31, Lions 20. And my reason behind that, I just, Jared Davis is now on the COVID list, and he's been really effective the last 3 weeks too since they've come off by. And then, obviously Kenny Galladay is pretty much ruled out at this point too, and they actually only lost 1 game when Kenny Galladay has played, so they're 3-1 when Galladay plays. To me, that's important. That's all their wins right there. When he doesn't play, they don't win. Who's going to step up now at this point? So I think they're missing some key guys. Obviously, so are the Vikings. I think riding that hot momentum now, beating the Packers, who are number 1 in division, and the Lions just losing a must-win game. I think there's just going to be momentum is going to be crazy, and obviously home field advantage doesn't matter a whole lot, but it is in Minnesota on that turf. So we'll see what happens. But I will be the one that takes the fall here, and will pick the Lions to lose. But
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think it's going to be a 4-quarter game. I could see it going either way. I just feel like I think the Lions are going to have a few more answers. I think they're going to be able to contain Cook to an extent, and I'm not confident in Kirk Cousins beating the Lions necessarily. I'm not really confident in the Lions doing much of anything, but I do feel like they'll be able to squeeze this one out.
Yeah. All right, we're going to move to another sore subject. Michigan lost to Michigan State this past weekend, and now they got to take on Indiana, who's 2-0, riding high. Michael Penix Jr. looks like one of the top quarterbacks in the Big Ten. Obviously at first
last week he was good. He wasn't that great against Penn State.
Yeah, well, I want to focus more here on what happened against Michigan State. Sure. I mean, we talked about the what if. What does Michigan State have to do to win that game last week at the very end there?
Yeah.
And they ended up winning against pretty much all odds. But like I said, this is the worst upset Michigan's taken, I think, since they lost at Toledo and Appalachian State.
Yeah. So here's a breakdown of let's see if I can find it. The stats for the entire game. So like just team stats. Michigan. Let me pull it up real quick.
While you pull that up, I want to say that it is interesting that the what basically worried me in the preseason was completely relieved after the game against Minnesota, and then brought back to life again against the game against Michigan State, and that was offensive line. It was cornerbacks, and wide receivers being able to create separation and experience at quarterback. Yep. And to me, that's what did not happen against Michigan State, but they did do it against Minnesota. So,
I was watching the Minnesota game the night before, and PJ Fleck's boat is sinking. Okay, so Maryland dominated them offensively. Okay, so I'm watching that and I'm going, okay, that's a little concerning. I was a little worried on that end just because I'm like, okay, Minnesota's really bad. At least on defense, they're pretty bad. I thought Michigan's defense did a pretty good job with what Minnesota tries to do offensively the previous week. But Michigan State's a completely different animal. They do way different stuff than Minnesota does. Why I wanted to pull up the game stats here. So Michigan and Michigan State were almost dead even in total yards. Michigan had more first downs. Michigan State threw for more yards, but they had way less completions, right? But they were so Michigan State was 17 of 32 passing. Michigan was 32 of 52, right? Michigan State threw for 323. Michigan threw for 300 even. Michigan outgained them rushing on less attempts as well, but Michigan had 5 more penalties than Michigan State. Michigan also had the ball longer. Neither team turned the ball over. So what does that tell me? Michigan made absolutely 0 plays on either side of the ball. There were no big plays. Michigan, like I cannot think of a single big play that Michigan made.
And you the game's more fresh in your mind because you just watched it again.
Yeah, I did rewatch it. I literally can't think of an entire. There were a couple pretty nice throws by Milton. For 15, 16 yards down the field. A couple pretty good runs by Haskins there. The touchdown run by Corum was good. A couple nice end arounds to A.J. Henning that gained 10, 15 yards. But other than that, there was no just explosive plays.
They had one decently long scoring play, and that was a 23-yard field goal by Quinn Nordine.
Exactly. They did not make any plays. Their yards per completion was 5.7, or yards per attempt, 5.7. Like, that's not going to get it done, right?
Yeah, when Joe Milton throws the ball 51 times, something's wrong.
Yeah, and I'm okay with throwing the ball, leaning towards throwing the ball, especially against that Michigan State team. They were going to stuff the run, and I watched everything that – so here we'll get to it in a second here, but everything that Michigan State did and does was leaning towards how, was leaning towards stopping what Michigan did well against Minnesota, right? And Michigan did not adjust on the fly during the game. They did not offensively. They did not adjust on the fly. Cornerbacks were completely exposed on defense, which was the concern. I mean, for the most part, Jaden Reed, they covered up. I mean, because Dax Hill was following him around for the most part. So Dax Hill was good on Jaden Reed, but Michigan State has 3 solid wide receivers.
I didn't even account for that third guy last week. But
yeah, Ricky White couldn't even run a route the previous week, and then he torched Michigan. So, cornerback is a concern. Obviously, preseason, Joel, you had giant concerns about him. I did too. I think the biggest problem I have is just, okay, Michigan State, they showed what they're going to do against you. They're going to throw the ball deep. They're going to people will bash Don Brown the whole time about like, oh, he's got to get out of man coverage, blah, 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 blah. He did. It really doesn't matter. If the ball is being thrown directly down the sideline deep after a 2-step drop, no safety is getting to that, okay? Your corner eventually does need to hold up. It doesn't matter what you're doing defensively. If that's all they're going to do, eventually that's going to, there's nothing you can really do about that if they're going to just interfere or they're going to give up that play, right? Eventually there's nothing you can do. But my problem was the adjustments after halftime offensively were not good enough. They put themselves – they had so many opportunities where Michigan State was stalling drives. They kicked field goal. They missed a field goal where they could have taken control of the game and they could have won the game by 10 points, and everybody would have been like, man, that was a little way closer than it should have been. But they would have said, oh, it's a rivalry game. That's fine. And then they would have moved on. Yeah. Like that was what I thought was going to happen after halftime. That's what I was like, okay, all right, they'll adjust. Michigan State's got a good game plan. They're taking advantage of our corners. That's our weak spot. They're taking advantage of some stuff up front, but I think we've got some plays that can be made because they still made, other than a couple 3-and-outs, like Michigan was getting a couple first downs and then punting, right? They were making a couple real nice plays. Milton made some crazy throws, especially early. Showing off his arm strength. He had a couple nice runs. They had a couple nice reverses, end arounds. That little reverse flip to Ben Mason was a really cool play. So they had plays there to be made. But it's just they didn't adjust to what Michigan State was doing. I mean, Michigan State was hyper aggressive towards the run, and Michigan just didn't adjust their play calling to what Michigan State was doing, and that's in the end. Then you sit there and you're like, oh shoot, we're down 10, and there's only 5 minutes left in the game, and now we got to come back, and it just wasn't going to happen. So it's really disappointing at this point that something like that happens because it's something that it should have been. It's pretty inexcusable. You can't lose to that team. You can't lose to a team that you're that much more talented than. And I still firmly believe Michigan is more talented than Michigan State. I think pretty much anybody with a brain is going to say that. But they were better coached and they executed better, and that's just disappointing at this point. So.
Yeah, and I think Michigan I knew Michigan was being in some trouble with those early flags against their cornerbacks.
Yeah, it changed the way they wanted to play. It really did.
Yeah, and it was some of them. I really try to be unbiased when it comes to refereeing because I'm always going to think that they're harsh on my team.
Sure.
But some of those were just egregious. Some of those were really bad. But because of that, Michigan State knows that if they throw the ball 20 yards down the field, that they are going to get probably one of a couple things. 1, a catch because the guy can't play physical against him. 2, a pass interference call, or 3, just an interception because it was a bad throw. They're really I don't think Rocky Lombardi was really that scared of throwing an interception because he probably knew, at least until it happened, that if a Michigan receiver plays too physical and gets an interception, they're going to call a flag. And they didn't get the interceptions, but you almost saw that a couple times. There were some really close interceptions that then they called the flag because he was playing too physical. And some of them they deserve. There was one where I forget who it was, but it was a guy who got a couple flags thrown on number 4. He literally just grabbed the arm of the receiver.
Yeah.
And, like, you can't do that. But some of them are just bad. So then Michigan's like wide or cornerbacks just had to play kind of pussyfoot around and not play too hard. And then like when Rocky Lombardi throws for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, you either know your cornerbacks suck or there was something up with the refereeing. And it was a little bit of both, but like it was just sad to see them like just so easily getting throws down the field.
Yeah.
Like Michigan State should not. I'm like, even when Michigan State has a good team, they're not doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think the other thing is like people were saying, oh my gosh, they're not getting any pressure on Lombardi, blah, blah, blah. Like Michigan State was not going to allow Michigan to get pressure on Lombardi. They were going to roll him out. They were going to take 2-step drops and chuck it up, or they were just going to run the ball. Like they were doing everything possible to not let Lombardi get hit.
Which is why it was just a surprisingly great game plan by Michigan State.
It was extremely good. I mean, they did everything. They did everything they could to.
They literally created the blueprint for the rest of Michigan's schedule for any opponent to want to see what you can do to just absolutely sabotage Michigan.
They did. Now, here's I think, I mean, we can get to this in a sec here, but there are things that can be done, especially offensively, that are still there. Like there were plenty of plays that were there to be made. We had a bunch of drops. There were a couple. I mean, rewatching it and watching some film breakdown and stuff like that. They were a few blocks away from some big plays. A couple different play calls. I mean, I thought it was stupid to go Wildcat there at the end of the first half. Here's my thing with that. The play was there. With a better throw, it's a touchdown. So, but my problem is it's like, okay, but you're relying on a running back to make that throw. So the play was there to be made.
At the very least, it let people know that Michigan may throw that ball, though, in those situations. Where before Michigan State was like, they never throw. So
exactly. And so it does. I just think given the situation, you needed a touchdown there.
Yeah.
The game changed when you didn't score a touchdown there because you were getting the ball coming out of half. So I just feel it's just disappointing because I think the game management, not necessarily clock management. I mean, that was fine. I mean, the 2-minute drill at the end of the game wasn't great, but Michigan State wasn't going to let you do much other than dump the ball off. The game management and the understanding of each given situation to where like, hey, this can turn the game here. Like this situation right here, like you're down on the goal line. I know it's only the second quarter. We're only down 7, but like we need a touchdown here. So we're going to do everything we can to score a touchdown here. We're not going to get cute. We're going to keep our quarterback who's played well on the field, right? He had a great drive going into that point. He was like 6 of 6 on the drive. He was picking them apart. He ran the ball well. Like we're going to keep him on the field. We're going to put it in his hands to score a touchdown here. That would have been nice to see. And unfortunately they got super cute and that was just disappointing. The adjustments were disappointing. Obviously the defense wasn't great, but I feel like the offense had every ability to score 40 plus points that game. And then this could have been a laugher. And they just did not take advantage.
Yeah. So I guess real quick, what do they have to do to beat Indiana here this week? And then predictions.
I mean, they just gotta I don't know. They just gotta play they just gotta play like themselves. Like they just gotta. I don't think they need to change the approach they came in with MSU. Like I still want their corners to play physical. You'll get a new batch of refs, so hopefully you'll be able to get away with it. But just I just think you gotta sure up on some things. Like you really don't have to make that many drastic changes in my mind. Like you're still a good team. You just had a few mistakes. You were a field goal away from taking Michigan State to overtime. I think Indiana's a great team, but I don't think they are the 13th ranked team in the country. Like I think that Penn State win was pretty lucky, and it's not impressive to beat Rutgers by 15 points. Yeah. So I think Michigan's gonna win. I think Indiana's gonna lose. I just think that I don't know. It's tough because they always play them close. Michigan and Indiana always play.
I remember like a few years ago when like
stupid
4
close games.
overtimes or something.
Yeah, and it was a year where Michigan was like head and shoulders better than them.
Mhm.
Usually, though, Indiana is one of the 2 games leading up to Ohio State. So Michigan's usually like eyes aren't on Indiana; it's on Ohio State. Hopefully, they'll have a focused vision this time. I think they'll win. I think Michigan will take it. But I think one thing that it leads to is just that the Big Ten is perfectly poised to eat itself alive, like, and not send anybody to the college football playoff and like look like crap. Like they just have all these perfect elements where, like, all these teams that are undefeated now could just beat each other. Yeah. So I just think everyone's just going to beat up each other and like it's going to be ugly by the end of the season. But that starts with Indiana losing and Michigan going 2-1.
So I think Michigan will win. Indiana, I think they're a solid football team. I just don't – they're playing well. Obviously, they're riding high, but they beat Penn State, kind of a fluky game. And, obviously they hung in there with Penn State, which is great. Indiana's defense is not bad. I feel like Michigan's going to have some answers this time. And they're going to – Harbaugh's been pretty darn good, at least in the middle of a season, coming off of a loss. Like, obviously, losing to Ohio State and then losing the bowl game has happened, but that's not the same thing. He's been pretty good, coming off Wisconsin last year. Like, they started to rattle off some pretty good games. Like, they kicked Notre Dame's rear end. They started to play well. Coming off a loss to Notre Dame to open the year a couple years ago. Then they rattled off 10 in a row. Like he's pretty good coming off a loss and refocusing his team middle of the year and figuring stuff out. That was my one, I guess, good thing coming out of the Michigan State game is like, okay, look, this team is really young. They're going to be better for this, especially on offense. They're going to be better from this game. Unfortunately, you can't lose to Michigan State. That's especially, you're sitting there looking at it as a fan. I mean, you got to live in this state now with a bunch of Spartan fans. It sucks.
There's nothing worse than a Spartan.
Literally nothing worse. Like you could lose to Ohio State. You could lose to Notre Dame. Like you don't have to deal with them as often. Like there's nothing worse. So I do think Michigan's going to win. They just have to get back to being able to establish a little bit of a run game. Maybe not rotate running backs quite as often. Stick to a guy or two.
And I would have loved it if they stuck to Hassan Haskins. Stick with the hot hand.
Was running well. Haskins and Corum should have been the 2 backs last game.
Mm-hmm. Charbonnet struggled a little bit too often. I don't mind starting out with Charbonnet, but if he doesn't get it going, then don't run him.
Exactly. Yeah. Corum brings something else to the table. He is as fast as Chris Evans, yet has been. He's explosive. So and I'm good with Haskins. He's scoring a bunch of touchdowns. So I'm stick to 2 running backs and maybe a third as a change up and just roll with it. Obviously they feel like they have 4 good backs, but maybe just stick to a couple. And I feel like, I don't know, Michael Penix Jr. has been pretty good for Indiana, but he was pretty bad for the most part against Penn State until like that last drive in overtime.
And the arm extension, yeah.
Yeah, who knows? That might not have even been a good 2-point conversion. So, it's pretty close.
That's a huge debate subject.
Yeah, that was pretty close. We don't need to get into that, but
So you guys both think Michigan's coming out with a win.
I think Michigan's gonna win by a couple touchdowns. They really do. They beat that Indiana team 38-13 or something last year. Indiana's a little bit different this year. Penix didn't play last year, but I'm not that impressed by Indiana yet. I might be proven wrong. I obviously was proven wrong last week, but I feel like Michigan's going to win by a couple touchdowns.
I think it's going to be within 7, but I do think Michigan's also coming out with a win, the W here. But I agree. Their offense has opportunities to be explosive if they don't figure out a way to stop Penix, Mobley, or in the pass game. Like, they already got another. I like the running back too. Stevie Scott, he's pretty good, and then Wap Thilior at wide receiver. And Miles Marshall. Those are – and then they got their tight end, Peyton Hendershot.
Yep.
So there's a couple guys to pay attention to definitely offensively. Michigan's going to have to create pressure. And I think they're going to have more opportunities to create pressure, I think, because Indiana trusts Penix more than what, like, Michigan State trusts Lombardi, like we talked about earlier, was Michigan State wasn't going to allow pressure. I think Indiana's going to have more opportunities to try to get those players downfield for bigger plays, but I think with the pressure that Michigan can bring, it could make it very difficult on Penix. I think defensively, like you said, they're pretty strong. They got the Husky position kind of like opposite, like Michigan's got the Viper position. They have a Husky spot. And I think those corners have been more proven than what our corners have been this year. But I think ultimately, there's more speed and space for Michigan, and I think that could be a huge factor in this game. Get Roman Wilson, A.J. Henning more involved. Maybe run a couple crossing routes or drag routes or something and figure something out. But until we can figure out a way to get our players deep and Milton hits them in stride, I don't think we're definitely there as an elite team right now. But I do think that this is a game that should be winnable once again. So I'm going to pick Michigan by 7, probably somewhere in the 30s.
I'd say Michigan by 10 if I'm going to pick a point.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then we can close this one up with some pick 6 here.
Let's do it.
We already did our Michigan and Lions game, so we're going to start this one off with the 49ers at Packers.
I got to go with Packers just because the 49ers injury and COVID stuff.
I'm going to go Packers.
Jimmy G and George Kittle, bad.
Yeah, I'm going to go Packers because I just don't think the 49ers will be able to keep up. Not that the Packers are going to score an inordinate amount of points necessarily on that defense, but I'm not sure the Niners scored much at all. So I'm going to go Packers.
Yeah, no Jamal Williams or A.J. Dillon for the Packers this week. But Aaron Jones is still around, and they've still got other playmakers and Aaron Rodgers. And I think defense is better
Defense has been great too.
Without the injuries. Yeah, without the injuries that 49ers are dealing with, I think there's just a lot of reasons to lean with the Packers here. So all three of us will take the Packers on this one.
Yeah. Aaron Jones is enough in the running game.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ravens at Colts.
I'm going to go with the Ravens. I don't know. Like, the Ravens are weird when they play, like, other good teams. Like, when they play sucky teams, they blow them out like crazy. But, like, when they play other good teams, they're a weird team. Like, they don't ever seem comfortable. Like, when they play a really good team, like they're in the games, but they never seem like they're in their groove. But I'm gonna go with the Ravens. I think, I think the Ravens' offensive line and offensive creativeness can outplay the number one defense in the Colts. And I don't think the Colts offense can match the Ravens' offense if they actually do click. So I'm going to say they bounce back from their loss and keep in tow with at least within a rock's throw distance from winning the division after that.
I'm going to go Ravens as well. I think Lamar Jackson is the equalizer there. The Colts, I don't think they have a bad offense. I wouldn't deem them explosive. And I think Jackson has a bounce back game, plays real well. And I think they're going to have enough, like kind of like Isaiah said, I think they're going to have enough to just put up enough points to kind of put themselves away to the point where the Colts aren't going to be able to catch up. I just don't see the playmakers on the Colts end on offense that they can keep up. Defensively, I think it'll be more of a defensive battle for sure, but I'm going to go like Ravens maybe 24-21.
Yeah, no, I think this is going to be a super close game, but I think it's going to come down to the leg of Rodrigo Blankenship, even though he missed 2 extra points against the Lions last week. But I do think he's going to come away with a game-winning field goal in this game. I think the defense is going to stifle Lamar Jackson a lot. Yeah. And Lamar Jackson, like it reminds me of the defense that stifled him in the playoffs last year when the Titans beat him. And
when you have glasses like that, it's awesome when you play well. Like when you're making kicks, it's like, look at this guy with the goggles. But when you're missed kicks, you look like such a bozo. Like, I'm sorry, dude. But
no, I get it.
When you miss a kick and then they look at the camera pans to your like dumbfounded face with your big old glasses, like it's a bad look.
Yeah. No, he's going to redeem himself though and have a good look with those goggles this week. I think he's going to get a game-winning field goal. And I think the defense for the Colts is just they look really good, and I think they're going to find ways to stop. And I think they can create the pressure that did against the Lions. Ronnie Stanley's out, and I think they're missing a starting lineman as well.
That's
I think they're still going to be able to bring pressure, bring Darius Leonard down the middle a couple of times. And that'll be the guy that stops the equalizer, Lamar Jackson. So
that is the thing. Yeah, Darius Leonard's going to have the Lamar Jackson role. So yeah, it's going to be tough.
So we'll see what happens in that game. It's going to be a great game, but I'm gonna pull the Colts on this one. Texans at Jaguars, both 1-6, and Jake Luton is going to now start over Gardner Minshew.
Yes.
Oh, I'm gonna stick with the Texans. I think still that they're playing terribly and they're not a good team, but they are playing worse than they actually are. When they get to play some of these other bad teams, they show that they should be better. So I'm going to say that the Texans still win this one, especially with a different quarterback. I think the Jaguars are actual bad. So yeah, I'm going to go with the Texans.
I think both teams are probably actual bad at this point. You just kind of chalk that up. But the Texans.
It's hard to be actual bad when you have a competent quarterback, though.
Yeah, so that's the problem. Anytime you look at the Texans, you're like, man, they stink. But then you're like, but their quarterback's good. So how they that bad? So because most teams you look at it and they're like, they stink because they played 8 quarterbacks this year already. That's why they stink. But no, the Texans are competent. They're gonna do some things because Deshaun Watson is good. So I'm gonna go Texans, and I think they could even blow them out.
Yeah, I agree. I'm taking the Texans in about a 17-plus point game here.
Yeah.
Saints at Bucks for the last NFL game.
I'm gonna go with the Bucks. I think they're starting to click. I think they need to get a little comfortable and get some separate. I mean, they have separation with the division, but just get a little more. And I think AB is suiting up this week. I don't think he's gonna have an incredibly big impact right away. And I could eat those words because Brady does know him and Brady does trust him already. But I think it takes a little bit of time for AB to get fully into the game plan. They already have so many playmakers there that he's not going to be might even by the end of the season not be a number 2 option. Still with Evans and Godwin and even Grant having a resurgence. So I just think they have too many weapons. The Saints haven't figured themselves out yet this season. They're still just kind of wonky and not playing up to the standard that they should. So I'm going to say the Bucks win.
I'm going to go Bucks. I think they rebound from not rebound from the loss last week, but they lost to the Saints the opening with them. So I think they're just a better team right now. They're starting to find themselves, figure out what they need to do defensively. They've been up and down, but I think they'll be able to kind of have a pretty good plan now for Breeze and Kamara. Michael Thomas hasn't played really much at all this year, so that's what's going to happen with that for the Saints. I agree that the resurgence of Gronkowski has certainly helped out Brady. If they get anything out of AB now, that's going to make that team pretty scary. So I'm going to go Bucks. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but Bucks by 10 to 14 or so. I think the Bucks are a better team right now. So
I'm going to go with the Saints. Again, they are not confident yet on Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas was limited for 2 days yet last week. He's starting out the week limited and maybe could be upgraded to full. And if depends even how he's feeling, they may not rush him back. Emmanuel Sanders will be back for this one. But it is a rivalry game, so part of me thinks they might try to put Michael Thomas back, and this is a potential battle for division. So I wouldn't be surprised if they still walked him out there. I don't know about a snap count as affecting this, but Kamara's still been super effective. Drew Brees and Tom Brady, the 2 greatest old guys in the game right now going at it. That's always a fun game. But I think the pass rush is going to be – I think the Saints have actually brought a surprising pass rush this year.
Yeah, better than I thought they'd be for sure.
Yeah, and Cam Jordan's definitely he's been good, a lot better the last couple of weeks. So I'm gonna I think just for possibly, I don't necessarily fully believe it, but I think possibly just for the differences in our picks, I'm gonna go with the Saints.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
And then
we picked all the same so far.
Florida and Georgia.
I'm going to go with Georgia just because I'm not looking at anything and I feel like they're a better team. So let's go.
I'm going to go Florida. I'm just going to mix it up here. Florida's got a better offense. Georgia, I don't know. Georgia just doesn't impress me anytime I watch them play. Like, obviously, like, when I really watch them play, they're playing Alabama, so, like, really hard to impress anybody when you're playing Alabama. But, like, Georgia just does not impress me as a team that's going to be able to keep up offensively against solid offenses. And Florida's got a pretty good offense. Cal Trask's really good.
Oh yeah,
So we'll see. I think it'll be a pretty close game. It'll be yeah, it's gonna be tight. But I'm gonna go Florida by a touchdown.
I'm also gonna go Florida, and I like Kyle Pitts at tight end too. Kyle Trask, Kyle Pitts. That's a nice little combo right there. And he's obviously got some weapons there at receiver. Malik Davis at running back. I like what Florida brings to the table, and I think Georgia has definitely got a little bit of a stumbling block this year. So I think Florida's going to take advantage of that and ride their momentum. So I'll go Florida. And then the last one here, Clemson at Notre Dame. Trevor Lawrence is out probably for the year now. Are they just going to call him out for the year at this point?
Are they?
Unless they make it to unless they – I feel like he would, though. I feel like he could just be like, all right, I'm just going to –
I think he's going to play. I think he's
going to come back and play.
I think he'd come back just because he was pushing so hard to even have this season.
That's true.
If he was if he was just going to mail it in, he would have already done that. So I think he's going to play. Not obviously he's not playing this week, but I think he'll come back after this. In this game, I'm going to go Clemson. I think Clemson wins by 2 touchdowns. Notre Dame is a top 10 team, but they're not a top 4 team.
Man. Yeah, I haven't watched either of these teams or really kept up with them at all this season, so I don't know. Yeah, because, I mean, Travis Etienne, like, I think he's going to have a big Heisman push as long as Lawrence is out, just because I think he has just been a stud for the past couple seasons. Like, 2 years ago when he was kind of in a running back room where he wasn't the featured back, but especially last season, like, he's rushed for, like, near 300 yards in some games.
Yeah.
I think he's special. So, but I don't know anything about, like, the Notre Dame's defense. I don't know how they are against the run. So,
Dalen Hayes is a good edge rusher. I like Dalen Hayes, but
yeah. So I'm just gonna go out on a limb, and I'm gonna say that, man, I think that Notre Dame's gonna win just because Lawrence is out, and this will be a good. Yeah, just a big test for them without their number one quarterback, without the Heisman favorite. Well, him and Justin Fields, but yeah, I'm just going to go with Notre Dame. I think they showed a lot of problems with Boston College, who they should not have shown problems with last week. And I think Notre Dame is a much better team. So even though DJ, their quarterback, did do pretty well against Boston College, that's still Boston College. So I'm going to go with Notre Dame, but I don't think it changes the standings much. I think Clemson is going to stay in the top 5, and Notre Dame might jump 1 or 2 spots.
yeah, I'm not going to take anything away from Clemson. I think they're a good team, but they do have such a cupcake schedule, and they definitely struggled quite a bit last week against Boston College.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about Ian Book as a quarterback to try to carry Notre Dame to a win against still a strong Clemson defense. So that part definitely I'm torn on. It's just going to be Dalen Hayes and the rest of the front seven going to be able to bring enough pressure to kind of throw Clemson's replacement for a loop. And I don't know. And either way, I think Travis Etienne is a quality guy that can definitely take the reins if he needs to in these couple of games where Lawrence is out. So while I'm battling it back and forth in my head, I think I'm going to take Clemson. And I think it's going to be a really close game. But, yeah, I think I'm going Clemson just on gut feeling.
Okay.
All right. I like it. We got some difference in our stuff.
Yeah, this will be an interesting pick 6 week. So.
All right.
All right. Well, good stuff, guys. Isaiah, you get back to the wife. I know you're still newlywed, so you're excited about it.
Yeah.
Hey. Yep.
I'm going to focus on watching the news and see what happens to the future of our country.
Yeah.
Yeah. Board up your
no matter
windows
what.
if you live in a city. So just in case.
Yeah. I'm in a suburb. I do have a giant MAGA guy right across the street, and then I've got people surrounding me that aren't. So we'll see what
Oh,
happens.
he'll protect you with his guns. That guy's got your back.
Got guns.
Yeah.
Got
Yes.
I'm gonna run over there if we got a problem.
Yep.
All right, guys. Have a good rest of your week, and we'll see you Tuesday.
We'll see you.
See ya.